What's up, class? Here we are in my parents' backyard. So I've headed home from Lawrence for the summer. You know, it's pretty nice hanging out here. Sorta. Anyways, last time we discussed why geology is important today. This week I will be discussing one of my favorite geological topics, the Triassic extinction. Following the largest extinction in the history of life on Earth, this was a time when the survivors were able to spread out and recolonize. This period gave plants and animals the ability to grow and rejuvenate many of the plants and creatures that evolved into later periods. So when and what is the Triassic period? The Triassic period was the first period of the Mesozoic era that was between 251 and 199 million years ago, which, as you know, is a much shorter amount of time than it takes to hatch an egg in Pokemon Go. During this time period, life outside the oceans was beginning to flourish and diversify greatly. Much of the world was connected due to all the continents being one supercontinent, as you know, called Pangaea. The weather was nice and warm, warmer than our current weather today. And it would just make sense since the supercontinent was all together and it was close to the equator. You know, the equator is much nicer. This warmer climate even led to there not being any polar ice caps during this time period. Near the end of this period, though, seafloor spreading led to rifting of the northern and southern chunks of Pangaea to start to split, where they would completely come apart near the beginning, late Triassic, early Jurassic, forming two supercontinents, and which would then later split up into the world we have today. All right, let's talk about some animals. So, marine animals of this time had basically been wiped out from the prior Permian extinction, which knocked out like 95% of them, which sucks. Mainly due to high levels of carbon dioxide. Fossil fish are uniform during this period, the Triassic period, which tells us that very few marine families made it through the Triassic as well. Later studies show that stony corals made their first appearance, giving us hints that on the coasts of Pangaea the first coral reefs were forming. Interestingly, a group of reptiles known as the Ichthyosauria began heading back into the water. They're kind of like a turtle-like alligator-looking thing, kind of like a tetrapod, but with a tail and bigger arms. And so they started going back into the water, and they would swim by moving side to side, and they could use their tail to project themselves a little bit. And they reached lengths of up to 50 feet and could weigh 30 tons. Take that, Shark Week. Alright, now plants. Not many plants and animals went through great changes during this period, since the supercontinent Pangaea was mostly just like a big, dry, warmer place. But in higher altitudes, forests were able to survive, mosses and ferns were able to survive along the coasts, and many types of bugs stayed around as well. Things such as spiders, millipedes, centipedes, and scorpions, along with the newly developed grasshopper, were the main insects of the time. Along with the marine animals, the plants, and the insects, they weren't the important ones of this time period, because this Triassic period was known as the Age of Reptiles. The main reptiles of this period were known as therapsids and archosaurs. Starting with therapsids. Therapsids, they looked much like a dog-lizard type animal, and interestingly enough were known as mammal-like reptiles. They are characterized by their powerful jaws with scary, pointy-looking teeth, and their ability to sit upright while still moving around on all fours like a dog. They really looked like a big reptile-y dog. They could probably run around and sit. They sat up like a dog. Say sit, they do that probably not. But so archosaurs lived in harmony with the therapsids. although you can probably assume they probably fought here a couple times. So archosaurs came a little bit after, but lived in harmony with the therapsids, and they're characterized by their ability to sit like a dog lizard, just like the therapsids, but with a much more prominent jaw. They also had 2 holes behind each eye socket, which allowed them to beat out the therapsids. People believed that what gave the archosaurs the advantage over their counterpart, the therapsids, was that they developed the ability to evolve upright quicker, and that they were able to rear up in times of attack, like they could get back and jump at you. And they gained this ability, and they developed this before the therapsids did, so, they probably just kind of won out every battle. But therapsids, along with archosaurs, were what people thought was the beginning of more dinosaur-like creatures. They were also pretty much kind of like the first kind of dinosaur-ish type animals. Alright, now we're going to turn to how scientists have uncovered this period and all of its plants and animals and how they changed over their lifetime to what they developed into later periods. So this guy named Friedrich August von Alberti was known for classifying all three different groups of rock in Germany. The first one is called the Bunter, which is the lower, and then you move on to the Muschelkalk, which is the middle, and then finally you have the Kuper, which was the upper. These were all very identifiable layers of rock that showed characteristics that were younger than the layers of rock below them that at the time they knew belonged to the Permian time period. These 3 rock groups were given the name Trias, which means 3 parts. Since this discovery of these types of rock classifications, any types of rock that present similar age or characteristics to the Trias, the 3, are considered to be part of the Triassic period. Since this discovery, Triassic fossils have been found all over the world, as you can imagine, from, the supercontinent they started out on, splitting up into every other continent. You're going to find them on the coasts, the west coast of, you're just going to find them everywhere. They're going to be along the coasts. The trouble is, a lot of the marine ones were destroyed, and we'll get to that in a second. As Pangaea broke apart, the subduction zone of oceanic plates that was pulling the 2 continents apart took with it much of the fossils that were left behind, but there are many fossils still all over the world. From Morocco to New Jersey, a thick sediment survived and is known as the Newark group. Because of this subduction zone, it has become very rare to find marine fossils, because they all got pushed underneath the land plates as the oceanic plates slid under. There have been fossils found on the west coast of North America as well. Much of the marine fossils that have been left behind are through studying ancient lagoon-type areas and coastal environments that didn't get destroyed by the subduction zone or weathering over time and things like that. As this period was marked by both dry and regionally wet climates, there were many deposits of fossils from sand dunes and things called evaporites, which are rocks that are formed from the evaporation of salt and mineral-rich liquids. This can be seen all over Africa, where many late Triassic fossils have been found. Along with Africa, there have been fossils found all around South America in Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil. Some of the earliest forms of dinosaurs have been cased in the Trias-type rock there and tell us that the Triassic was a time of expansion and growth in its earlier forms of creatures. As the Permian period ended and the Triassic began, Earth was much like an empty canvas with just a few paints to work with. This was a time of expansion and change for the surviving plants and animals as the giant piece of land they were living on, Pangaea, was beginning to split apart. The Triassic brought about flying reptiles, early crocodiles, turtles, frogs, mammals, new sea creatures. Plants were able to grow and spread. The surviving plants gave new opportunity for such things as conifers and ferns to spread all over the place. Invertebrates and corals in the ocean started to advance into greater forms of themselves. The Triassic really was an amazing time of recovery and expanse for the creatures of Earth as Pangea started to split apart, as well as giving the opportunity for the rise of dinosaurs, which will come in the next period known as the Jurassic. Now I'll conclude my speech by telling you a little bit about my favorite animal that came in the later part of the Triassic, and it is known as the Coleophysis. It's pretty much just like a badass looking raptor type thing that hunted alone and could grow up to 10 feet tall. I'll probably link a picture of it in the YouTube description because now I know how to do that. But they had razor sharp teeth and like to herd their prey into groups before attacking, much like my strategy in Pokemon Go. Catch 'em all.